With SpaceX prepared to try another launch to the International Space Station Saturday following Wednesday's scrubbed mission, the prospect of investing in space has become more intriguing. SpaceX is a privately held company founded by Elon Musk, also the founder of Tesla. On Saturday, SpaceX will make another attempt to carry two NASA astronauts to the International Space Station. The flight marks the first time the private sector will launch astronauts and is being closely watched by Wall Street. Since you and I are currently locked out from investing in SpaceX, I have brought you the next best thing, space ETFs. So let's take a look. There are some compelling reasons to space investing. In the satellite industry, launches are a 6 billion annual business while the manufacturing side is valued at 20 billion. So here are two space ETFs to consider. The Procure Space ETF, symbol UFO, is the first and only ETF dedicated to the space theme. UFO follows the S Network Space Index. That index has some restrictions that ensure UFO isn't a technology fund in disguise and offers legitimate space purity. According to Procure, a company is considered to be in a space related business if its product either has as its essential purpose or is dependent upon space based functions. In the case of companies that make products that go into space, such as launch vehicles, or companies that operate systems in space, such as satellites, the space related nature of the business is clear. Reportedly, at least 80% of UFO's holdings generate at least half their revenue from space related endeavors. While UFO does contain stocks like Virgin Galactic Holdings, Inc., much of its portfolio is made up with more familiar names in the satellite technology industry, such as Dish Network Corporation. So let's take a look at UFO on our charts. And we're looking at the weekly chart on Procure Space ETF, and the symbol is UFO. For disclosure purposes, I do not hold any shares of UFO at this time. And again, this is the weekly chart, goes back to about April of 2019, which is the extent of the history. And at this point here, at about $28 a share, you can see that there was a pretty steep descent down to mid-March, and then the bounce back, the close on Thursday, $19.90. The volume, same thing, descent in the volume with a general upward trend in the last few weeks or so. Into the MAC, you can see a nice basing pattern here with the fast line just popping through the slow line. We're at -2, but it's got a pretty good trajectory heading on up to that zero. It's going to take a few more weeks for sure. But you see the same thing here in the histogram. Into the price rate of change, again, nice basing pattern. Fast line move through the slow line. Still well below that zero line, but it's on its way. Here into the relative strength, bottom in March, heading on up. We're just barely past that 50 or midline. So that looks pretty good too. Here, stochastics as well. Decent bottom with a fast line heading on up. And then the Williams, as you can see, that bottom in early March with a nice base, and then that rocket shot heading on up to that overbought territory. Not quite there, but it will get there soon enough. Back up here to the price chart. Now, as usual, conduct your fundamental analysis. Now, let's go to the next ETF. Space is often called the final frontier, but the S&P Kensho Final Frontier Index, the symbol is ROKT, rocket, isn't confined to space because it includes exposure to companies with oceanic exploration. With the ocean and space combination, rocket is a focused fund with just 25 holdings, but it doesn't have the inclusionary restrictions that UFO has. Therefore, some of the fund holding are traditional large cap aerospace and defense companies. So let's take a look at ROKT on our charts. And now we're looking at the weekly chart on the S&P Kensho Final Frontiers ETF. The symbol is ROKT. For disclosure purposes, I do not hold any shares of ROKT at this time. And similar to UFO, this is a recent ETF as well, so it only goes back to about July of 2019, but the pattern is pretty similar. You can see that top in mid-February with the very hard descent into mid-March, the bounce back here, close on Thursday, 31.18. Down here into volume. Volume is pretty low. So that's perhaps a concern. But into the MAC, same sort of nice basing here with the fast line just popping through the slow line, as you can see, below the zero line. Very similar to UFO, as well as there in the histogram. Price rate of change, very similar. Bottoming, basing there, fast line moving on through. Pretty much the same thing with the RSI, stochastic, and then Williams. But Williams has based here and it had that rocket shot and it is in that overbought territory. So perhaps a little bit ahead of UFO. Back on up to the price chart. And one last time, conduct your fundamental analysis. And for today, that's ChewDog Charts. Thank you.